We're diving into the wolf pack today. Clan Wolf, Delta Galaxy. They have these wicked cool geometric style camo patterns on top. So let's dive into it today and check out how to paint Clan Wolf Delta Galaxy. Now I'm starting with this charred brown as the base coat, and when doing base coats, add enough water so your base coat applies at least thinly, and always aim to do at least 2 coats of this because it's better to do 2 thin coats than 1 thick gross layer of paint. And for the legs, I'm just using model colored black and using 2 coats as well for that. And if you're new to using the sponge for painting, always dip it in water and make sure it's a little bit damp before using it when starting to apply paint on the model. Now I'm going to use this leather brown in Menoth white to build up the colors on the top brown. And I start with the leather brown being about 90% and the Menoth white, which is kind of like a bleach bone, adding it slowly more and more to get brighter. So I can't tell the exact percentage, but essentially I'm just mixing in more of the Menoth white to get up higher with the color gradient. And I think at this point, as you're looking at it now, I would say it's about 50-50. But I don't want in this video, in this model, to go really bright. I want to bring up the colors, but I want that really dark brown underneath. As you see, I'm getting off more of the paint the higher I go with the colors because I don't want to get it super chalky at the top, and I want it to be a smooth kind of transition from the darker to the brighter colors. And another thing to be aware of when using a sponge, you can kind of squeeze the sponge and try to get in some of those recesses that are hard to get to. But in this case, this model, there are a lot of parts hanging over, so I really want to play with that shadow going down on the brown. Now, this is as bright as I'm going to go. I'm going to say this is about 60% of that bone color and about 40% of the leather brown. And I took off a lot of the paint before applying it, but hey, this is looking cool. And let me just say, these Clan Wolf paint schemes are amazing. I really want to paint more of these. Now, for the gray, because in the description, I see people painting in black, but then in the description, I see on parts of the lore and on different parts on camo specs, they're showing them as kind of a dark gray building up to a lighter gray. So I'm going to cover the black first with London gray, which is a little bit darker of a gray. Then I'm going to use the medium sea gray and build up. And this is the only colors I'm using for this bottom part because I'm going to do a lot of chipping on it, and then I'm going to really use the edge highlights later to build up this section of the gray. Now it's time to start doing the camo pattern. Now, if you look at camo specs, they show these guys of having triangles. And I'm going to be completely honest, some of the paintings on there reminded me of giraffes. So I didn't want to go like that. So I'm going to mix black with green and then that bleached bone look. But basically, I'm sticking to the triangles because it seemed like it was important in the lore, and I kind of like to stick to that. So I'm just doing the triangles and just trying to carefully draw them out. First doing the outlines, then painting in the center. And my paint is not watered down, but I have water in it just so the paint will flow. And you'll notice I will do more black triangles later on. I felt like after I did this, I wanted to do more later for the final result. And I feel like don't be afraid to try something like this. I feel like I spent a lot of time when I would look at other people do these kind of freehand camo or items, and I would always be afraid. So just try it and see what happens. And I'm doing the green with scale color dark forest green because I love this green because it kind of has like this like teal look about it. I don't know, but I'm just doing the same thing, but I'm kind of want to layer the greens. So I'm either putting them underneath the blacks or right next to it to kind of build up that layering of the camo pattern. So when you're painting something like this, just be mindful, have some water in the paint, and just be patient with this and kind of have fun, because this is, I think painting camo is a little bit more fun than doing edge highlights because it's a little more interesting. You're building the shapes and different designs on here. Now I'm using the Menoth white to put on top of some of the other triangles. I'm treating this one as the smallest point of the camo, and I'm doing this because I want to build up that kind of dimension layering of the camo. So again, I have some water in this so it can be easily applied, and if you're afraid of going with that color, feel free to do it lighter and do one layer of it and then go with the second layer. I went with one layer partially because I might have been impatient. Now I'm using AK Interactive brown wash for just the top. I am happy with the color dimension that's already on the grays underneath, so I'm just putting it on top. And anytime using these washes, mix the white spirits in at the beginning also, so it helps it flow on the model. Then after that, I have my cut up sponge here, and I'm going to clean up the model with white spirits. Now I really want to learn more about the lore of Clan Wolf. Just found out they have a deep difference than Jade Falcon, and Jade Falcon is the model I'm painting next week, so I need to figure out what's going on. And for the edge highlights on the gray, I'm going to start with the medium sea gray and treating this as that first edge highlights. So as if you've seen my other videos, I'm minimalistic with my edge highlighting. I don't like doing every single corner because I feel like it looks more natural. So I'm hitting it first with this one, just hitting the edges that might see the sunlight. Next, I'm going to take Stonewall Gray and go just a little bit on top of those medium sea gray highlights. So I don't want to cover up all of them, but I also want them to show. And I'm hitting this just again, minimalistically, not going on every single corner of every single panel. And I was just looking at the BattleTech universe book, and I feel like I'm starting to understand these guys. So they work more as like a pack mentality rather than this high honor like Jade Falcon does. If you are a Clan Wolf fan, please share more. I really need to learn more about these guys. I admit I love the mercenaries part of the BattleTech universe. I need to learn more about the clans. So now I'm taking Dark Forest Green and mixed with Irati Green, and I'm just going to highlight some of these triangles. You don't have to do this. It would have looked fine just as it is, but I want to add just a little touch of dimension on the camo. Next, I'm going to use the Thunderhawk blue and highlight some of the black triangles. And looking back at my finished result, there was one highlight I wish I didn't do, which is on the front chest of the mech. But hey, you can't fix things later on. Well, maybe you could fix them later on, so maybe I'll go back and fix that. But I highlighted them with that. Now I want to start working on highlighting these panels. So went right back to that leather brown with the Menoth white 50-50, and I'm just highlighting the edges here, and then I will move on to a more higher base about more of the Menoth white so I can hit the final edges on the top. And really what's cool about this model is I have a lot of sharp edges to use, which means I can do the side edge highlighting. And I love this. If you have a model with these harder sharp edges, use the side of the brush and let the brush do the edge highlight for you. If you're always using the tip of the brush, and unless you have amazing brush control, you're gonna get a swiggly line. I hate those things. So I like using just the side of the brush when doing edge highlights. And I'm crazy. I'm going to edge highlight even more of the green with just the Irati green because I wanted to do more color, apparently. Next, I'm going to use Iron Hand Steel once again and just pick out some of the metal parts, which are jump jets on the back, and then I have the vents and the hands and the guns. So not too many, but yet again, make sure you add water to metallics because it helps them flow better. And then I'm going to wash it all with Lowland oil. And something I realized that I never mentioned, be careful when applying washes. If you let them pool, they create this like black goop kind of stuff. Maybe not black, whatever wash you're using. So I like to use a small brush when applying washes, and then I'll take away some of the extra pooling. Now, to highlight the steel after the wash, I'm just going straight with that oily steel from Model Color and just picking out some of the little edges and the highlights where they look good. Now for the final highlight on the gray, I'm just going to use off-white and just barely hit some of the edges. I want to be careful with this because one slight mess up could make a massive streak, but yeah, being careful. Then I just saw a picture online and I chose the number 13. It's lucky, right? I love the number 13, so I used it. And just doing hand lettering, always trace the first light lines first and follow up with the darker lines. And I'm doing a small glaze here of purple under the grays. And glazing is just doing a small tint on the bottom half or wherever you're tinting. And whenever you're doing a glaze, be careful to take off a lot of the paint from the brush and make sure the paint is watered down. And I figured for today I would show chipping of two different colors. So I'm using the Stonewall gray to chip, then I will go in with the off-white and do chipping. When you do chipping, make sure you take off a lot of the paint, the majority of the paint off the sponge before you're doing it. Now, I'm starting with emerald green on the lens, and recently I've been looking at a lot of BattleTech artwork, and I'm kind of thinking about doing it slightly different I have been doing. I'm applying more of the mint twister mixed in with emerald green now, and I'm going to hit the sides, but I'm really loving glazing a darker color on the top left. So I'm going to use royal purple and glaze it. Then it's very dark, so then I have to take the royal purple with the base color and clean it up by kind of like where you mix them together and then you just blend the colors. It was almost like a wet blend here, just to create a little bit of that gradient there and the blend with both colors, so it looks like that cockpit is it's glowing, it's radiant of light inside. Now I did a lot of this off camera, but I wanted to show I put fluorescent green and I used it on the sponge to create object source lighting. This was the first time kind of testing this, and it worked out so well. And this is the result of the Clan Wolf mech. I would love to paint a lance of these guys. This was so much fun to paint, and I have to thank Wolk for providing this model. I love the design here. I loved how it turned out. And coming next week, Jade Falcon, apparently the enemy of Clan Wolf, and with Aces coming out, I want to paint this next week. And I just have to give a shout out. My favorite mech is this dude, and I don't like the way it looks. So soon to be, I'm going to strip this dude and give him a revamp of the Crater Cobras. With that, thank you guys for watching and have a marvelous, wonderful day.